Hello and welcome to this launch session. I'm Peter. With me I have Steffen and Esben. And we're going to talk about what's new in developer tools in 2024 Release Wave 1. Let's have a look at the session agenda. To begin with, Esben will talk about the ability to have object extensions in the same application as the base object. And he will also talk about a small tool we call ALTool, with some helper functions that you can use in pipelines. Then Steffen will talk about improvements to the AL language, including developer support for Copilot functionality in the application. And then I will take over talking about AppSource preview, AppSource hotfix changes, as well as the new in-client AppSource gallery that replaces the embedded AppSource marketplace. So first, let's hear Esben talk about the ability to have object extensions in the same app as the base objects.
Thank you, Peter. My name is Esben, as you probably know, and I'm going to talking about, and it's actually a long time requested feature that we have now finally implemented. It's all about the ability to have extension objects in the same app as the base objects, and you can have multiple extension objects in the same app. This is an ask we've had for many years, and the idea behind it is that it will allow you to do non-breaking refactoring within an app, splitting objects into modules per functionality, and also prepare for moving objects into separate apps later on. It is enabling a better design and separation of concern within the app. And as I said, it has been a long time ask, and you may want to know why didn't we do this before. And one of the answers, the simple one, is that we have been busy with other functionality, but actually there's a little more to it. We would have liked to do this a long time ago, but we had a big roadblock. And it's all about how we, from the beginning, represented tables and table extensions in the SQL layer. As you can see here, if I have a base app or my app containing a base object, which is my table, and I created two extensions to that one, and they will have to be previously in separate apps. When they were deployed in the SQL server, we would end up having three tables, which will all be joined together. And that join is expensive, and we were afraid to ship a feature that would allow you to shoot yourself in both feeds at the same time very efficiently and thereby kill performance. So we didn't want to add it at that point. Then something new happened in the last release, because we actually improved on the SQL layout of tables in general by having only one table for companion table, which reduces the joins to one. But in the last release, we actually were focusing on this feature and could not add the feature that I'm presenting here today. Because if you collapse all your table and the extensions object into the same, what we are now doing in that scenario is that we actually also collapse it at the SQL layer. So one app with both a table and multiple table extensions will still only create one table in the SQL layer, which means that there are no joins. And the trick we're doing here is that we are collapsing the metadata for the table, so we only generate one table in the server. So there's no cost here. Of course, if you then in another app add another table extension, it will end up in the companion table and you will have a single join. So we have sort of been waiting for getting that idea and optimizing the existing SQL implementation of table extensions. So what do we support here? Because we have many extension objects, and actually we support all of them. So enums, pages, reports, permission sets, and tables can have base and extension objects in the same app. or you can have multiple extensions in the same. And we support the combinations: one table, 8 table extensions, 1 page, 2 page extensions, all the combinations. It is enabled by default when targeting runtime 13, which is the current release. So let's jump to a demo. Actually, what I have here is a small app, purely for demo purposes. But this is version 2 of the app, and in version 1, I only had 1 table, 1 page, and 1 enum. But I'm using AppSource cop for this, because we still want to make sure that you are not creating breaking extensions by splitting it. So we had to take care of that. So if we look at the table here, and if I comment out this field, you can see here at the bottom, I already get a nice message from AppSource cop saying the field with name and ID 2 was found in the previous version, but is not found in this version. And here below, I have a small table extension within the same app containing the name field. So if I simply comment that back in, it actually fixes my error, because now the surface of this app showing a table with a table extension with a field called primary key or PK and name now exists, and I'm not breaking anyone downstream. The same example here with a page. In this case, it's an action. I can remove the action. I immediately get told that it is missing, but since I'm doing a small refactoring, I can put it back in here in the page extension. As you can see, it works. And we are actually already uptaking that ourselves. And this is actually from our Business Foundation app, where we have the number series line. And there's actually also a number series line obsolete, which is they have isolated the old obsoleted field in the table extension. And you can see there, one is actually extending the other, and all of that is shipping now. So we are using this to refactor and improve our own base app, in this case, Business Foundation, but we are going to use this as well. So you asked for it, now you got it. Next topic is a small tool. It's called ALTool, lack of imagination, and it is shipping together with the V6 right next to your favorite compiler. But don't get too excited, because it is a small tool, and right now it only have 3 different methods or arguments you can call it with, if we don't count the help and the version. It can extract the package manifest from an app file, simply getting out app.json, and it prints it to the console, so you can pipe it in wherever you want and use it in a pipeline. You can create a simple package, basically a package with only symbols from an existing app file, and you can get the latest supported AL runtime version from a platform version. This is built to support our own pipelines and also BC container helpers. The reason why we needed this now is actually because we have removed .NET 4.8 from the binaries, which made it hard to use in pipelines. So we created this small tool, and right now it has these 3 kinds of functionality. We may add more in the future if we need it, because now we have a good place to add small things like this. And yeah, you can use it, we use it, and you will have it in the BC container helper. But now you know, so don't overthink it. It's just a small tool. And Stefan will now present the next series of new functionality in the AL language. Over to you, Stefan.
Thank you, Esben. Yes, let's talk about the language and the changes we've made here. Let's start with tooltips on tables. We now have the ability to add tooltips to tables, and you can now reuse tooltips across all your pages if they're on the tables. And if you have code actions enabled, you can also use the new code action to move tooltips from pages into tables. For isolated storage, we added support for secret text. This means you can now use the secret text type to get and set values in isolated storage. It's important to notice here that if you set a value using secret text, then it must be retrieved using secret text. Otherwise, you'll get an error. For actions, you can now add a specialized file upload action, which enables you to quickly add functionality to upload one or more files. And for multiple files, the upload file dialog now supports dropping an entire folder. The trigger for this action specifies a new type called file upload. With this type, you can get the file name and you can get the stream for reading the file content. With the work we've done here, we've been working on reference types and lists. For now, it works with file upload and in and out streams, but it paves the way for future support of other types. In version 23, we released the prompt dialog page type for designing Copilot experiences. It has specific areas for creating prompts for the produced outcome and for tweaking with adding additional options. It also includes system actions that you could implement for attaching additional data to the prompt, for generating, regenerating, and controlling the Copilot experience. This gives you a recognizable Copilot dialog with all the options that you need. But now we've added prompt guides to the action area of prompt dialogs. In these actions, you can specify scenarios that the user can use to be inspired to create new prompt values to get data from the system, or just be inspired to try out new things. For other pages like lists, we now have a prompting action area. In this area, you can define new actions that are related to Copilot experiences. The first visible action in the prompting area will be shown on the page on top of all the content for quick access. As with other action areas, you can organize your actions in groups. You can also find the list of Copilot prompting actions in the action bar, and here you can also turn off the quick action overlay. On pages, you can also now use instructional text on fields. This gives you the ability to hint at the user what data needs to be in the field if there's no value in it yet. It is supported on text-based fields. If you're working with external services, we now made it easier for you to work with cookies. With the cookie type, you can now set cookies on requests and read them from responses. And you can even automatically use the response cookies for the lifetime of the HTTP client instance. This is very useful for connecting to services with cookie-based sessions. Number sequence has been enhanced with a restart method and a range method. The range method allows you now to get a whole range in a single database call, enabling for much more performant bulk operations. We've added new obsolete states, pending move and moved, and two new properties, moved from and moved to. This is part of our efforts to make refactoring between extensions easier. You can find examples of this in the number series module. It was moved from the base application to the Business Foundation application. Moving is supported on tables and fields, and by using this, we can remove the need for data copy in code. Using this method, we do not consider it a breaking change, and if the consumer already have the move table in scope, then an uptake is not needed. It will simply work seamlessly. The functionality is currently limited to a select set of applications, but we intend to open up for everyone to use this in the future. We recognized a need for the app.json to contain comments. So now you can change the language mode on your app.json file to JSON with comments and add your own notes. I'll end here with an important update. We have been upgrading the debugger in the VS Code AL language extension. this means we no longer can support debugging on services running older versions of Business Central. If you need to debug an older version, you must install an older version of the AL language extension. You can do this from VS Code or from the PC images. Talking about debugging, Peter, you also have an important update.
Yes, thank you, Stefan. So another feature that partners have been asking for a long time has been the ability to debug this system application. And so have you also missed that? Well, now you finally can. So just set breakpoints in code and in the system application code, or step into it and debug the system application. Note though that we are still respecting the non-debuggable and the secure text that will limit debugging in protected areas of the system application. So the major benefits of this is that when you are developing and troubleshooting your own applications that call into the system app, you can now debug into the system app as well. Also, if you, I hope you are, contributing via open source to the system application, you can now actually debug those contributions yourself in cloud. So that's sort of empowering your work there. Now, the reason for not enabling this sooner has been that it required multiple platform features, including the recently added secure text that Stefan just talked about. If you want to know more about the secure text, I mean, you could see that, but you could also watch the launch recording from the last release. So let's switch gear to the first of a couple of AppSource improvements, and we'll start out with AppSource Preview. So we now support the AppSource preview state, which all submitted apps automatically go to when passing validation. So that means that as a publisher, you can release your app directly to public visibility in the AppSource marketplace as usual. But now you can also keep it in preview and actually create and share a link to that preview app, which you can either use yourself or you can send it to selected customers, for instance, for allowing them to install it as maybe a fast hotfix validation or a limited go live among a few customers to verify that everything works before you scale out. I mean, you can even use this to test yourself in your own production or sandbox environments in cloud. And this allows you to ensure that your app is ready for prime time before releasing it to all of your customers. Now, as I mentioned, customers, administrators, consultants behaving as delegated admins can install the preview versions, and we support sandbox environments. I think I made have said production just before to test it out, but we actually only support production for now. Also, the preview support is something that we actually shipped in the 23 release or 2023 release wave 2 minor. So we kind of backported it in that. Now, to identify a preview version, Partner Center operates with the concepts of a preview audience and a hide key, which we actually call a preview key because that we think fits better with the feature. And you might actually also in Partner Center documentation or AppSource documentation see the word flight key being used for this. Now in Partner Center on your app, in this case we have the Bing Apps sample in Partner Center, you can, under the preview audience, define yourself a preview key. But if you don't do that, one will be generated by the system, right? So that's basically always going to be a preview key. But probably you want to have something that is humanly readable. Now, then to allow customers to install, or admins, to install your preview version, you then need to share a link with them. And that link needs to contain the tenant ID for the customer environment, the app ID, and then the preview key. And so you can see here an example. I highlighted the three parameters I just mentioned. But Note that you can only install via this link today. There is actually in the partner center a link, but you cannot use that to install at this point. And you also cannot log into AppSource Marketplace and install a preview version, not until it becomes public. Now, installing with this link is kind of business as usual, except that in the install dialog, we will tell now the user that this is a preview version that they are installing. Also, if you're trying to install this in a production environment, that will fail today. So there's a couple of things that are good to know for AppSource publishers. So first off, it's not possible to install a version of an app that is lower than the latest publicly available version of that app for Business Central. So if you launch a preview, or if you want to create a preview version, you need to have a higher version than the last public version. Also, as I mentioned before, if you want to use a preview, you have to set a preview key as part of the marketplace submission process, and you have to set it before you submit. You can't submit and then go in and add the preview key for the same version of the app and expect it to work. You have to do it as part of the submit process. Also, we do support having simultaneous previews with different versions and potential different preview keys that will be supported. So you could basically, send different links to different customers, or maybe they're not sort of on the same cadence with this. But Partner Center itself will only show the last submission, right? And if you at some point take one of those preview versions and move into public, then that is the one that will be shown. But the links will still work. Then we understand that as part of the preview process, and this is one of the big benefits of the preview process also, is that you probably want to react to the feedback that you are getting from your customers. So you are actually allowed to make breaking changes between preview versions. And actually what happens is that we are always using force sync when we are upgrading previews from one version to another. That of course means that there could be data loss between previews, but they're right now supposed to run on sandboxes and for sort of testing out this functionality, so that ought to be okay. Of course, your apps still need to, when you go to public, they need to be compliant with the sort of previous version and going forward as well. Then if you have dependencies for your preview apps, maybe even to preview libraries, then you have to include those as required. And also it's important to mention that the preview feature is really only for creating these pre-releases and verifying that the quality is good enough. They are not intended for creating specific customer apps, one-off customer apps where you give a specific customer a link and they have their own app, or for a general sort of trial version that people can use. So that's important to keep in mind. Also for administrators installing these apps, as I mentioned, we only support sandboxes at this point. So technically we actually also support production, but we launch with sandbox only to manage risks and to get feedback. And honestly, I think also the core scenario is really for testing out, and likely you want to test this out in a sandbox, or a customer would like to test out the new functionality in sandboxes to not incur any production disturbances. This also implies that sandbox environments that have a preview version installed, they cannot be copied to or restored to production environments, right? And so if you want to do that, you need to either replace that preview version with a later or newer public version, or you have to uninstall the preview app, right? Then preview versions can be updated to a higher preview version, and to do that you use the link that I mentioned before, or you can update them to a public version once that comes out, right? And you do that in the admin center, or you can even use the link there as well, but without the preview key. When your environment is updated, your preview versions will be updated to any newer public version based on your preferences for major and minor objects. Basically, just business as usual in this. And then whenever operations are done on extensions, we have telemetry. And in that telemetry, we actually now indicate whether the extension was a preview extension or not. So we have extension availability and extension preview key provided dimensions in a couple of the telemetry signals that allows you to go in and understand or monitor what has been installed. If you want to know more about this functionality, we have put in here a link to the FAQ. We also have docs in the administration for managing this. There is a small video out covering it, and we also have the release note. So now over to another feature, AppSource app hotfixes. So in 2023 release wave 1, we added the ability to hotfix AppSource apps that target older versions of Business Central. That used to be a problem because we saw a lot of partners not being able to adopt or release AppSource apps for a new Business Central release because that would prohibit them from hotfixing existing customers. But we solved that a couple of releases ago. And then to ensure that customers could actually be upgraded from that hotfix version to the latest or next version available in AppSource, we validated the hotfix version against this next version, but only the first version of that app targeting, the next Business Central main or minor release. And we received a lot of feedback from partners on ideas that they would like to validate against the latest version instead. And so in 2023 release wave 2, we sort of backported it to that. We changed the validation so that we now do validate against the latest AppSource app version. And that has the benefit that it ensures compliance with the latest version of that app at the time of hotfix that previous version. That also allows partners to perform more changes in their hotfix version, right? So, for example, a common scenario is that partners can now backport features and include them in the hotfix version if there are no breaking changes to the latest version, right? They couldn't do that before because if they wanted to both add this to the latest version and to the hotfix, and the validation of the hotfix was to the first version without that additional, functionality, we would say that the hotfix was introducing something not in the later version, and that would break validation. If you want to know more about this, it sounds complicated maybe, but I put in a link to the docs on that. Let's talk about seeing and installing AppSource apps directly inside of the Business Central web client. So in addition to the primary AppSource marketplace site online, Business Central has for many releases had an embedded AppSource experience inside of the client. And you could use that to browse all of the apps available for Business Central in a fairly rudimentary way. And you could open up a cart for that app, read more about it, see marketing material, etc., etc. However, this embedded AppSource experience has been deprecated by the AppSource team from basically now, April 2024, and it's been replaced with APIs that allows custom experiences for surfacing AppSource app marketplace content within the hosting application. And given its widespread use in Business Central by partners and customers to browse and install apps, we have decided to replace the old embed experience with a new experience that we call Microsoft AppSource Apps. And this is the experience in its first version. First and most importantly, this list provides a much stronger capability to search and filter than before. If you just saw that list just a few slides before, I can show it here again. This is not a great search experience, right? But here you can search, filter, etc., and you can use it in a way basically as a standard list page, right? View, sort, filter. We also show both the name, the publisher name, the install state, popularity rating, number of ratings, and last modified date. So you can actually filter down to this. Also, we give you the ability to jump to the online AppSource marketplace in a browser, or even jumping to that specific app that you highlighted in the list in the online AppSource marketplace. And there's also an edit user settings that allows you to switch your regional language to influence what is being showed or filtered in this list to match those settings. Of course, you can select one of the apps. In this case, we are looking at the Shopify connector. And just as before, we show a cart where you can see additional information and link, etc. We are not showing images, at least not at this point, though, because that's a fairly heavy process to get through the API, and we want this to render as fast as possible. You can still install from this cart if the app is free or have a transact plan. You, of course, still need to purchase on AppSource. And for other cases, like Contact Me, you need to go to AppSource and install there for now. Let's have a small demo of this experience. Okay, so here we are in the web client. And so let's go and just search for our AppSource page, right? So we have the Microsoft AppSource apps page. And it lists all of the apps, and you can see that the list is quite extensive, right? We can scroll through. We can, of course, filter. Let's see, what apps are coming out of Microsoft, for example, if I can spell it. So here we see all of the apps from Microsoft. We can scroll through them. We can sort them by last modified date. Maybe we probably want to have the descending one to see the newest on top. Of course, we can sort it by name. We saw before that we opened the Shopify connector. So just as before, we can read the details on this. We can jump and show it in AppSource if we want to see the full experience in there. And there's another thing that you can do. This can be a long list. So why not take the advantage of the analysis mode? And so inside of the analysis mode, you can, for example, group all the apps by the publisher, for instance. Here I filter to Microsoft, so maybe that's not so interesting. But if you have a lot of different publishers, or rating or things like that, you can actually group according to that. And yes, I showed how you can filter and slice extensions in the analysis mode. You can actually even use the new Copilot experience for the analysis mode to just in natural language ask it to help how you want to view in the analysis mode your extensions. Maybe not the most advanced scenario, but it is supported. Okay, there's actually a little bit more here, right? A few things. First of all, last year we launched the ability to sell your apps through AppSource Marketplace. And you can join me and Kurt to learn more about that. We have a session, What's New, selling your Business Central apps using the Microsoft Commercial Marketplace. Also, we have a super exciting new tool called page scripting. That allows customers and consultants to easily record and play user acceptance tests directly in the Business Central web client, driving higher test coverage, increase agility while reducing costs. This is something that we release as a preview in 2024 Release Wave 1, and you can join me in a session going deep into this, the in-preview user acceptance testing with the new page scripting tool. And finally, we have a lot of updated documentation content for developers, for data analytics, reporting, Word layouts in special, error handling, troubleshooting tools and guides, async processing, telemetry, security, extensibility, and how you can help adding to the documentation. And so Kenny will host a session just on this, the What's New key updates in learning content for developers. So, as usual, you have a lot of different channels or resources where you can give us feedback or ask questions. You can submit ideas as well. That's all for now. Thank you.